All right, welcome everyone to a brand new edition of BizzTalk, and we are starting a new series, Sustainable Entrepreneurship. And with me today is Satya, who is coming to us from the Global Alliance for a Sustainable Planet. Satya, thank you so much for being here. And our topic today, really, really interesting, innovative finance and catalytic climate action. Satya, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Dirk, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here because we're discussing today something that's very close to my heart. About my background, I have been a development professional for about 4 decades now, working on a variety of issues, human rights, rule of law, diplomatic negotiations, post-conflict recovery. I had the privilege of managing the UN-supported and coordinated the $7.2 billion tsunami recovery program at the wake of the Boxing Day tsunami. Then, of course, climate change, environment. Most recently, I was the head of the New York office of the UN Environment Program, and I was the secretary of the UN's Environment Management Group, which is the consortium of 51 UN agencies, funds, and programs.
Wow.
And there we discuss consistency and coherence in terms of our internal practices that impact the environment, and of course, external advice and support that we render to the stakeholders so that we are consistent in that, so that we are not working at cross purposes. And so that's what I was doing till the end of March. As of 1st April, I joined the Global Alliance for a Sustainable Planet as their Secretary General. The Global Alliance intends to catalyze $1 trillion in development impact by 2035.
Wow.
That's our hope and goal, and we know we will succeed. People often ask you, what's your plan B? We don't have a plan B because there's no planet B.
Right.
So if you're working for the planet, you only have one plan, and that plan is to succeed at all costs in every possible manner, and that's what we intend to do.
Fantastic, fantastic. I appreciate that. It sounds like the organization is doing some interesting things, and gosh, your background is fantastic. Just it sounds like you've been doing this kind of work for a long time, and maybe not necessarily completely focused on sustainability, but just trying to make an impact is what it sounds like your career has been. Is that is that a good description?
That is true, but sustainability is at the heart of making impact. Otherwise, you're making negative impact. So positive impact is all about sustainability. Sometimes we see it, sometimes we don't see it. But then, when you look back, it is extraordinary in terms of what you can achieve, even as an individual. I'll give you an example. When I was a kid, and I was possibly 16 or something, which was more than 4 decades ago, and I started shaving, and like every youngster that thinks they know everything, and so I was wasting a lot of water, and my mom came around and she put a big bucket below the tap, and then by the time I had finished shaving, she had caught about 55 liters of water. And then the next day when I went back to shaving, she said, hey, you could actually take a half a liter jug and you put the warm water in it, and you could shave without having the tap running all the time. And I did that, and it worked out extremely well. And so from that day to this date, 40 years, and saving 55 liters of water every day, just one little thing. And if you do the maths, I have saved 1 million liters of fresh water. just by not being stupid. You don't have to be clever. This is not being stupid. And so individually, we can do so much if we just care enough. So if you call impact, yes, I have made an impact, but then again, it's about sustainability. The water saved has been used by somebody else, and we are a world completely water stressed. So every little thing we can do, everything that we think is wasted, we shouldn't. I mean, a little thing, somebody comes to your table in a restaurant, they're pouring you water, you know you're not going to drink the whole glass. What prevents us from telling, hey, stop, I don't want water anymore? Because anything that drops into that glass will be thrown away if we don't use it. So every little thing helps. And it's a problem created by 8 billion people. It is a problem that will be solved by 8 billion people. We can blame the governments, we can blame corporations, we can blame everybody other than ourselves. But the fact is that we have ownership of our positive qualities as much as our negative impact. So if we focus a little bit on what the negative impacts are, our positive contributions will enhance. And that's what will save us. Because the planet doesn't need saving.
Absolutely. Wonderful. I appreciate that, Satya. And you're right. A lot of sustainability is just not being stupid. I like that. I'm going to keep that and spread that. So kind of moving on into the next thing. When you hear the phrase sustainable entrepreneurship, what comes to mind for you first?
Well, sustainable entrepreneurship is about taking everybody along, and that includes species other than humans. It's about considering everybody else that is in the ecosystem. So a project that we did as part of something called the Tropical Landscapes Finance Facility in Indonesia, and those of your viewers or listeners that wish to know more about it, it is tlffindonesia.org. So this was something we set up in 2016. I was outside the UN at that time because I wanted a bit of freedom from the bureaucracy to be able to pull this off. So I wasn't working for the UN. And this was a labor of love between numerous organizations coming together. And my role was that of the catalyst, bringing everybody together. And it's a public institution, nobody owns it. And the UN supported it, UNEP supported it, and it still continues to support it. I have nothing to do with it anymore because then I moved on. I had to resign when I became the UN Assistant Secretary General. And then, of course, now I have a bigger responsibility. So I wish them all luck. But why I remember that is that we managed to bring to life a $400 million project to protect a 400,000 hectare rainforest. The world's first large-scale investment of private money into protecting a forest by creating a business model. So they had already lost about 90,000 hectares of land to illegal logging and deforestation. So that land now is home to a roughly 40,000 hectare sustainable rubber plantation, the largest in the world, and 50,000 hectare conservation area run by WWF International. And the rubber plantation is run by a joint venture, part owned by Michelin, one of the world's largest tire companies. So by building a partnership, a virtuous partnership, you can actually mitigate the risks. And we were able to raise money at ultra low costs compared to what the market offers by creating a partnership between a major bank, BNP Paribas, a debt fund, an asset manager, ADM Capital, a host, the world's largest agroforestry research institution. The World Agroforestry Center was our host, and funded by the UN Environment Program for the small costs that we incurred in the process. And to bring all of that together, you create a project that saves the Sumatran tigers, the orangutans, the pangolins, and protects a landscape that is 6 times the size of the country, Singapore, and employs 50,000 people, because you have to create that people compact. If you don't have the social compact, it never works. because people will then be misused by vested interests. If the same people become champions, then you will have a better chance of protecting the forests. So it employs 16,000 people directly in fair wages and about 34,000 people in the secondary and tertiary sectors of the economy. We brought the same idea to India. Sustainable India Finance Facility was born in 2017. The first project there was to support a transition of 6 million farmers to zero synthetic chemical farming in the state of Andhra Pradesh, which is not a small state. It's roughly about 60 million people. It's like any big European country. And there, the entire farmer population is switching to synthetic chemical-free farming. And as of now, they have converted 1 million farmers with no subsidies, no incentives that are counterproductive. There are a lot of incentives in terms of capacity building, training, motivation, demonstrations and all, but nobody is given money. Oh, I'm going to give you some money so you change. And then people become dependent, and that dependency then breaks everything you achieve. Then it becomes short term. With the moment you stop the tap of funds flowing, because people think that the money comes, here people are doing it because they want to do it.
Right.
And a large majority of them are women farmers. And it's extraordinary what they have achieved.
Wow. Yeah, very interesting. And I wouldn't have guessed that statistic, that a majority of
about sustainable finance. No, I've been talking about sustainable finance. Last year, the German Development Bank, KfW, they signed an MOU to lend $300 million to this project at only 0.5% interest. It's extraordinary. So when you build these partnerships, and then people come, because people are desperately waiting to put money into ideas that have the right kind of potential. And that's why we set up the Global Alliance, so that we can really provide the opportunity to the well-meaning development finance institutions, the banks that really want to move from a destructive business model where losses are public and profits are private. So that has to change. We have to take nature and the loss of nature into consideration when we build a business model. And so that's what we hope at the Global Alliance to catalyze on a planetary scale.
Wow. I love that. I love what you guys are doing. Kind of coming back to, to the topic in general, innovative finance. What are some other ways that we can innovate within finance for sustainability, other than what you've just described?
Simple things like let's take the top 300 pension funds in the world. And mind you, there are thousands of pension funds. If you take just the top 300, they manage about $18 trillion in assets. And since they pay a long term, the pensions are to be paid over a longer term, they don't want outsized returns. A good pension fund is happy if they make a 3-4% return over a longer term. That's all they want.
Right.
And if you just took out 5% of the $18 trillion and earmarked that, okay, we're going to put 5% in nature positive investments, that's $900 billion becoming available to be deployed in nature positive. Nobody is talking about charity. People often talk about pilots, and I say pilots don't fail, but pilots never scale. Right. Because you can throw grant money at creating a pilot and making it successful. It has great value as a learning experience, but pilots never scale. You have to create a business model because public finance is limited. We promised each other in the Paris Agreement that by 2020, developed countries of the world will provide $100 billion a year by 2020 to the developing world so that they can do the climate action that is needed. 2020 has come and gone. The Green Climate Fund, which was set up as part of the Paris Agreement, has not even disbursed cumulative $10 billion so far. Forget $100 billion a year. So that's an illusion. That's a mirage we are chasing while the world continues to fall apart. But
Why are we so short, Satya? Why are we so short? I mean, that is
we are
like
looking at the wrong place. We are looking at the wrong place.
Oh,
The
okay.
right place is to look at private finance, to make private finance work for nature, to make private finance work for people. Roughly 200 plus years ago, when banking became mainstream, when they all started as community banks.
Right.
It was banking with a purpose. People put their little deposits into a community bank, then the community bank lend to those that will do business. So that's how communities grew. But it was the purpose. Money has lost purpose. And then that's why we keep creating notes and structures upon structures. The 2007 financial crisis is a telling example of creating financial structures without assets.
Right.
And so that's the challenge. So if we take nature as an asset and as a very important asset class, then we will value it. We will invest in it. We'll bring it back. And that's possible with private finance. And private finance is also, the good thing is, it is not subject to political whims and fancies. Because what happens with development finance is many a times the conservatives win, they have a different agenda. The liberals win, they have a different agenda. And all the money that has been put or promised or have spent is all wasted then. Happens a lot. I can cite hundreds of examples that I have myself experienced with very important countries where the government changes, they have different priorities, they've already invested $100 million in a project, and they say, hey, why don't you just wrap it up? We don't want to put any more money.
Right.
It happens a lot. And so, but in a private finance model, you will never lose that project. You never lose the impact because it has nothing to do with politics.
That's right.
So when business is done for the right reasons, we can save ourselves, the humans, because the planet doesn't need saving. We need saving.
We need saving. I like that. I like that a lot. And Satya, I think you're completely right. The key is not the innovation within public finance. It really is, it comes down to private finance, which there's a lot more private finance than there is public finance anyway.
70% of the global GDP is private, 30% is public.
Yeah, I mean, we can make such a bigger impact with that private finance. I love the example that you gave with the pension funds, and if we just took a small percentage, what kind of impact it would really have. So tell me more. Are there any other organizations that are kind of leading the charge with this kind of innovation?
It is, but it's mostly supply side. So
mostly supply side.
The organization that I was in before the UN Environment Program, they have a phenomenal UNEP finance initiative. It has about 1,500 members. Some of the world's, rather most of the world's consequential financial institutions are members. And I was on the global board representing UNEP. And so they have helped catalyze the principles of responsible insurance, responsible investment, most recently the principles of responsible banking, and then the Net Zero Asset Owners Alliance that we hear a lot about, but it's all supply side. Because it's easy to bring together 100 CEOs of top banks for a photo opportunity with the UN Secretary General and get them to agree on some common principles. And I have to give them credit that they not only have committed to doing something, and many of them are actually stepping up to the plate and leading the charge. But it is supply side. It's a business. Money has to make sense, in the sense that the investment case has to be made. So while the supply side is shifting, there is very little demand side conversation happening. So if the demand side conversation doesn't happen, which basically is finding the champions, empowering them, listening to their ideas, helping them like you would help mentor startups or whosoever, and then finding them the money, the risk capital, so that they can invest and grow. So in the absence of the supply side, even if the demand side, even if the supply side completely shifts, there are tectonic shifts in the supply side, it doesn't matter, the money cannot be invested because nobody is about to throw away the resources. So we have to do the hard work, which is the tough part is getting down to the communities, working with them, understanding their aspirations, identifying the champions, and building these social compacts that will then absorb the kind of resources needed to make that tectonic shift from conventional brown economy to a green economy.
I love that. I love that. Well, and I want to throw a little bit of a curveball at you, Satya, and that is that obviously when we're talking, let's say we're able to make these big shifts in private finance, and we obviously have a lot of new startups that are very focused on making a difference in the world, trying to combat climate change. But a majority of startups are not focused on that, right? The majority of startups are solving other problems. And so my question would be, how can a regular startup participate in that sustainability effort? So for instance, most of your startups are tech startups. How do they really participate in this sustainability effort, and what's the involvement of finance at that point?
Well, I think, to be fair, you'll be surprised how many youngsters are engaged, and I'm talking about the startup universe, on sustainability focused businesses. There's a large number, and that's hats off to these youngsters. Every time I talk to them, I walk away so inspired. They really, really mean business. And then that's what gives me hope, because my generation has spectacularly failed the human species. We have been profligate. We waste resources like tomorrow doesn't exist. Everything must happen today. And vanity, if you pick up the word vanity and the word vain, all the alphabets of vain are in the word vanity. So in our vanity, we need a wardrobe full of 100 dresses when 10 would suffice, or even 5 would suffice. That's what has driven this mad rush to where we are today. And the youngsters ask far many more questions. I have 2 children of my own, and I'm so proud of them. Every time, they want you to live your promise. You can't tell them something, do as I say, but don't do as I do, doesn't work anymore. No. They hold you to your words. And then that's phenomenal. And that's what I wanted to salute the younger generation for doing that. But more importantly, the startup universe is a small part of the overall small and medium enterprise universe. There are 350 million plus small and medium enterprises in the world. In many countries, they're about 98% of the emissions. And they're either too small or too fragmented, and nobody works with them in making them sustainable and actually making them understand the benefits of sustainability. Take the case of India alone, has close to 65 million micro, small, and medium enterprises. Now, if they changed a light bulb, just a light bulb, I'm not talking some complex switch. If they changed the light bulb from the incandescent lamp of 100 watts to an LED lamp of 11 watts, that's saving pretty much 90% of the electricity. So even if it's a 1 hour of that lamp burning, that's 90 watts. So 65 million entities, 1 bulb for 1 hour. You're already talking gigawatt scale mitigation. And what if they switch that and they keep saving that, because power saved is power generated. So, so there are these tremendous opportunities, but it's difficult. Nobody wants to get their hands dirty. We want to, there's this beautiful poem called The Development Set. And it's a beautiful poem because it's a poignant reminder of the development professionals from waxing eloquent about how important the development is and what great knowledge we bring, while forgetting conveniently that the true knowledge and wisdom lies within the communities themselves. And if we work with them and listen to their wisdom, we will actually walk away wiser and will do better. And so that's why working with these small and medium enterprises across the planet would be a phenomenal thing to do, because that will truly save on multiple fronts. And so there are opportunities like these that one could tap into and work with, and we intend to do that at the Global Alliance.
I love that. I love that. We have about 4 minutes left on our 30-minute time. So sure. I want to throw something else out there, and this is really maybe diving into specifics, but there's been a huge rise in demand for remote working, for businesses to go more virtual, more digital. Does this help or hurt sustainability efforts?
No, it certainly helps, because
okay.
In simple terms, people don't have to travel within the city. People are much more productive. People are much more healthy. You might have seen from the data that is available, the road accidents have fallen exponentially around the world because people travel much less. So, and even normal mortality rates have reduced considerably. So there are substantive gains on multiple fronts. But since we are talking climate change, the problem is different. There, the trends are long-term. So before COVID struck, the carbon concentrations in the atmosphere was hovering between 416 to 417 in the Mauna Loa Observatory of NOAA in Hawaii. And that's where is the highest point, and they get that. But now it's 420. So there's no stopping that. The long-term trends continue. And that's why we need to be very careful, because the last time we were at 420 parts per million of carbon concentration in the atmosphere was 3 million years ago. And so the fires you see burning across Canada's northwest, or in other parts of the world, the devastating bushfires you see in Australia, or the peat fires we see in Indonesia, these are not random occurrences. When the land goes dry, the moisture is missing. Every little spark causes a planetary scale fire. The United States West Coast lost 5 million acres of land to fire last year. And this year, we still, it's still on. I mean, we don't know what might happen. And I pray for everybody who lives in that part of the world. So the challenge continues, and we have to act.
We have to act. So it's not just enough to reduce, we have to find ways to improve, is what you're saying.
Yes, reduce is great, but you'll have to reuse, we'll have to recycle. As my good friend Cyril Ghosh, the founder of Parley for the oceans, he says his strategy, I love it. He calls it AIR, avoid, intercept, and redesign.
I like that. I like that. Very good. Well, Satya, we have about a minute left. Are there any final words that you want to leave with the audience? And I've absolutely loved having you, by the way. And I foresee in the future having you back on to talk about another specific topic if you're open to it.
I'm absolutely open to coming back anytime. Thank you. And I just want to close by saying to the friends out there that we all have a champion inside us. So find the inner champion, look around yourself, how you can make a difference, how you can make the impact, because we all love our mothers, but the mother of us all is Mother Nature. So let's spare a thought for Mother Nature. Let's really stand up for her, because she stands up for us all the time. And if we are alive, if we breathe, if we have a purposeful life, we have only Mother Nature to thank. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Wonderful words, Satya. Thank you again for being here. And everyone in our audience today, go check out their organization, the Global Alliance for a Sustainable Planet, and see what you can do to make a difference. Thank you so much for everyone being here. Again, Satya, thank you. And
Thank you.
hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye, everyone. Take care.
Thank